Here.
Get over here and do the live thing. Okay. We are live. So just waiting on folks to get settled. Gio, where are you? Are you coming? You're muted, BJ.
I'm here.
Okay. So yeah, I guess let's give Gio a couple more minutes and before we get started, or we can start.
Well, no, we can wait for her.
Okay. She's usually good if she's not going to come. She's good about sending me a message. So that leads me to believe she's on her way.
Well, I'm don't seem to be getting much done around here. I need to start packing. So that I'm not doing it last minute.
Mm-hmm.
I did order a coat, a jacket, because I remembered all the coats that I left. They're all full-length coats. I didn't have much for, casual jackets.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's been raining here for 4 days solid. I killed my first iguana today. I looked over there and there was this head hanging down from the roof. I thought it was a snake. And then when I saw it, it was bright green and black. So I got my trusty broom. I knocked it from hanging over my sliding glass door, and it jumped over on the far wall next to the walk, and it was climbing up. I knocked it down, and it jumped into my shrub. Then I hit at the shrub, and it got on the walk. Then it jumped back on the wall. I knocked it back down again. And when I knocked it that time, I got the tail. The tail fell off.
What?
So then it was sitting there trying to figure out which direction to go in. And I got it good, brains and all.
Oh.
I tell
Florida
you.
life. Florida life. You want to send a message to his people.
I know.
Huh?
I hope they don't come looking for him. But there she is. But it's just maddening that you have to worry about these critters, the frogs, turds on the rug in the patio. And I have tried everything, the salt, the snake rid, the, you know, but I
Did
did
you?
get into my Florida life last week. I had bought a power washer, a small one, just to clean off the patio floor and the walk. And I used it once and I couldn't see much more it was doing than the hose. So I didn't use it for a whole year. I pulled it out the other day because I had this flora gunk on my courtyard pavers. And it really cleaned it up. I was surprised. I would have had to pay the yard man $40 for what I did.
Good, good.
But then I got real happy and I took it in the back and the hose wasn't on it properly. And I thought, oh, it'll leak a little bit. And what it did was it blew a hole in the wand.
Oh,
So I had
no.
to order a new wand. You know, I need to learn to stay in my lane.
That reminds me of an episode of Frasier.
What?
Where he and Niles were trying to fix the toilet at the apartment, and they did a horrible job, and they soothed themselves by saying, well, you know, basically, we need to stay in our lane, because if we learn how to do this, then there's no work for the plumber, and then his children starve, and then the Mercedes-Benz man loses a customer.
Yeah.
Hey, how you
Hey,
guys
Gio.
doing?
How are you?
I'm okay.
Well,
I
where
got some
are you?
I'm I'm at home,
Oh,
but
okay.
I got some things going on with this video. I don't know. I look like I'm in the sun, don't I? What's wrong with my video? Oh well, whatever.
No, I'm looking at the quilt in the background.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to experiment with making my
Green.
own voice. What's it called?
Oh, okay. Panels.
For the reflecting
the voice
for the voiceover stuff. So I need to
voiceover.
make it quieter in my spot. So, you know, this stuff costs some money. Like, I need to do this on the cheap.
Really?
Well, you know, you
Yeah.
could go to Joann's and get foam.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been looking around
Yeah.
because the real acoustic panels are
Yeah.
terribly expensive.
But there, you know, people buy that foam to reupholster furniture.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think that would work.
Well, I'm gonna be finding out here real soon.
Well, let's get started.
So you can make us some voiceovers for the show.
Ooh, that would be interesting. Oh, sure. I'm down for that.
I know,
I need all the practice I can get.
You know, because Bill Quinn, who's a very famous voiceover person who does my stuff. You know, the stuff where he says, "Thank you for joining our common ground." Well, Bill Quinn does something like voiceovers for over 200 radio stations.
Wow.
Yeah, and ads and stuff. And he's in St. Louis, but he's been doing it for 30 some years.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Hmm.
And he used to do the voiceovers for one of the radio stations, the talk radio station that I worked for in Boston. Um, and so when I went on the internet, I contacted him and said, "Hey, Bill, I need some help around here." So he does them for me. I don't have to pay him, but you can do it. I'd love to have a female voice.
Wow, that would be so cool.
Cut
Okay.
some stuff for me.
Hmm. All right, Michelle. We need to get together so we can make some demos for BJ.
All you have
How,
to do is
how,
send me the audio.
how did I get in this?
Well, because I need the script. I need what you want me to say. That's what.
Oh, Michelle will have you talking for 5 minutes. Uh, all I need is for you to be saying, "Welcome to our common ground. We'll be right back." Whatever.
Okay. Okay. I can do
See you
that.
next week. Don't
Okay.
don't forget
So
to.
let's get started because I want us to
What?
say what we have to say about chapters 3 and 4, and then next week is our last week, and I'm ready to be done with nothing personal. Nothing personal. So, so let's welcome everyone to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle, where we are reading Nothing Personal by James Baldwin with a foreword by Imani Perry and an afterword by Eddie S. Glaude Jr. It's the 16th book. This is session 16. 16th book we're discussing publicly as the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. You can learn more about us at our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, or the website readingchangeslives.wordpress.com. And I'm trying to be conscious of our time because I don't know if we have any viewers tonight. I told you guys last week I was starting to add people to a tweet when I talk about the show. And so this week I added son of Baldwin, and he retweeted the tweet, and he has googobs of followers, googobs. So I don't know who's out there listening to us tonight. So anyway, I'm Michelle Odom. I'm located in New York City. And BJ.
I'm BJP Graham, and here's my book. I would call myself a Baldwin follower, and I'm in Palm Beach County, Florida.
All right. And Gio.
And I'm Georgette Moses, and I'm joining you guys from Columbia, South Carolina.
So yeah, we're on chapter 3 and 4, and of this essay. And we've been doing it a little bit different this session. We're not doing a bunch of questions and facilitators. So just whatever anybody wants to share. So you all know I was having all the trouble with the internet last week. And so when I went to set up this week's meeting, I noticed that there was a copyright claim on last week's video. And I couldn't imagine, I'm like, well, it's just us talking. Of course, I was like half the meeting missing, right? So I couldn't imagine what it was. And it turned out to be when Gio shared Trouble Man. Yeah. By Alicia Keys. And so it didn't block the account, but it blocked the video. So I don't know how long that video, I guess most of the week, has been blocked. And the only way
you have to respond to the violation with YouTube. And once you explain to them that you're not monetizing, then they'll unblock the video.
Okay, good. Oh man.
Okay. Well, they gave me two options: to dispute it or to trim the piece that was contested. So I trimmed it, and then they unblocked the video.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But but I say all that to say that last week, we were trying to show and tell was the objective. But I guess I don't know. I don't get it. YouTube knows my station is not monetized, so I don't even know.
So let me ask you this question: how much did you have to trim off of the video for them to be okay with us showing?
It was about 5 minutes.
So we can only show like a minute of what we're showing and telling.
Well, what they did was they carved out. They showed me the section that was offensive. It was about 5 minutes long. And I just had to say, yes, go ahead and trim it. And then they did the trimming because I thought it was going to be a lot of work for me to do it. They did it. It took a while, but yeah.
Okay, so you got a minute Alicia Keys. What was that intro?
Well,
before the song?
I don't even know. You know what? I didn't even watch it after the trimming happened, so I'm not sure.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go watch it and see what they did.
Yeah.
This is why people are going to other platforms. No freedom.
So, I guess we could share stuff, but we should know that it might get cut out.
It's not the artists, it's the music companies.
Yeah.
None of us really know what to do with Google and Facebook and Twitter.
Yep. So anyway, who wants to start us with a discussion on, well, I guess I'll read the little summary here. This is my shortest summary ever, right? No. The challenges of facing life day after day, despite everything, alone, and the power of love to make our lives worth living are the themes of this week's reading. And then the one question that I came up with says, Baldwin finds the ending lyrics to Bessie Smith's song, Long Old Road, bitter. The lyrics, you can't trust nobody. You might as well be alone. Found my long lost friend, and I might as well stayed at home. And my question is, do you think relationships are more difficult today than they were in Baldwin's time, which was 1924 to 1987, or Bessie Smith's time, which was 1894 to 1937? Why or why not?
Wow.
Let me take a jab at that. It's a good question. it's worth looking at from a Rubik's Cube perspective. In many ways, Bessie Smith's life was so much simpler. And I'm haunted by Aunt Lydia's admonishment and advice and guidance to what's her name in The Handmaid's Tale, when she says, it frees you because you won't want what you can't have. Speaking to a woman who has recently had genital
mutilation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Black people during that period did not particularly desire those things that they could not have, but aggressively treasured those things that they could have. And what they could have was the people in the small world in which they lived. And that there was a mutuality about what you wanted. I suspect there also was the kind of intimacy that James Baldwin yearned for and was unable to have because the world was so small.
Mm.
And I think that that small world allowed people to have a greater level of satisfaction.
Hmm. That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me, and I also know, just with the kind of poverty I've had to deal with in my late life, that I'm very conscious about being satisfied and not tempting myself with things I can't afford. So I also do that. I also do that around the issue of love. And yesterday, my girlfriend Leah was suggesting that we might want to watch this movie called, or this series called Black Love on Hulu. And I said, why would I do that? And she knows that I told her years ago that at some point I pretty much stopped listening to love songs, R&B love songs, because I felt like they're drilling this desire into you to have this thing that was not present in my life. And, like I know if I'm listening to jazz or I'm listening to some kind of instrumental music, then I'm not feeling that kind of longing that I get when I'm immersed in the love songs. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, let me ask you about that, Michelle. Is it because you are reluctant to tap into the need I mean, we listened to R&B love songs when we were 12 years old. And all I wanted, listening to Nancy Wilson or Sarah Vaughan, all I wanted was a cigarette, some scotch, and a lover.
At 12 years old.
Right.
I mean, that's what the song was telling me. That was it. But I also yearned because I claimed a possibility that one day I was going to have a man that loved me so much that he was going to grovel in the sand, begging me for my love, blah, blah, blah. Because there was a possibility, there was a hopefulness. But at our age, we can either tap into the need and find frustration. That's what I'm hearing from you. Frustration and the lack of opportunity, etc. So you're much more reluctant.
Yeah, and I mean, I think from my vantage point, I went through childhood in the 60s, and I went through the 70s as a teenager. And so from my vantage point, women in your age group who brought that wave of feminism, most of you still ended up, from my vantage point, settling into rather traditional lifestyles. I think by the time somebody like me was coming into young adulthood, women were much more, had a different kind of view or desire for independence. Men were very often very angry that women, wanted this sense of equality and all of that. And they were feeling like, well, if you're not going to be the traditional person that my mother was, then I guess I'll hoe around and have myself a good time, but what I'm not going to do is try to entertain a new vision of how men and women can relate. And I think that as the generations go on, that division has become even more stark. My baby brother, who's 10 years younger than me, I felt like I saw among a lot of his peers, they saw what was happening with my generation, and a lot of them felt like, well, we want to try to figure out how to make this work. They understood the whole women's rights thing and all of that. They were like, okay, let's figure out how to make it work. And a lot of them have made it work. But I think I'm in that sandwich group where relationships just got crazy.
The only thing that I would maybe ask for reconsideration about an agreement is that my generation was the first generation of redefining and restructuring what marriage and traditional homes were. So I kind of disagree about that, because I'm very clear that I got married because it was a gift to my parents in gratitude. I had no desire to wear a white dress, go to the church, blah, 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 whatever. At the end of that day, I was just so exhausted. I didn't know in the world to do. And so I let my mothers plan on whatever. I'll do whatever you tell me to do, and I'll be there a week before. And I'll go get my hair done. I'll go do the photographs. I'll do whatever you all tell me to do. Whatever is, everything is. I mean, they pick the colors, they pick the flowers. And I was in Boston. I had nothing to do with all of that. So I kind of disagree.
Well, I acknowledge that it's your generation I think I started out saying it's your generation that brought in this new wave of feminism.
Oh, okay.
But I'm saying, I'm saying that it still is still. No, I'm saying it still resulted in a lot of cases for marriage, whatever the nature of those marriages might have been. By my generation, there were a whole lot of us that were not getting married, both by choice and by lack of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I have, for example, now a niece who I just learned is pregnant, and her boyfriend would love to get married. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to. She's not ready to. She feels like a marriage is a piece of paper that doesn't prove or guarantee anything. And she may get married down the line, but she's not feeling any pressure about it.
My own daughter.
And so, yeah.
Who said, I don't want a husband, I want a family. Yeah. And I'm gonna have my babies, and I'm gonna make a family.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see what you're saying. Even though we were the first generation to live with our boyfriends and fiancés before we got married and shared housing and all that kind of stuff, and saw that as both, I know I saw it, it just made sense that we would get an apartment together. What good was it him having an apartment, me having an apartment? He comes and stays at my apartment 5 nights a week, and I go and stay at his apartment 2 nights a week. That made no sense. Mm-hmm. So yeah, okay, I get you. Mm-hmm. We were the first generation of non-traditional thinking about a lot of different social norms. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And my generation caught the backlash of that.
Oh, is that what you're saying? That it was a backlash to it?
It was ugly. Ugly. Am I lying, Gio? How did you experience it?
Well, whenever there's any great change going on, there's always an equal and opposite force trying to keep things the same, right? So, in your question, what's the difference between, I guess we're talking about romantic relationships in the periods of time before the periods that you mentioned here, and then even after. It's what is the basic, the meat of the question is, what does love look like to you? So, and then relating that to what BJ said about expectations of it, what you're being told is love, and what equates to satisfactory love, and what is not acceptable, social norms. And then there's an element of independence. You're going to break away from what everyone else is doing, or they expect from you, or you've been told is acceptable. And whether you're going to adjust to that reality or you're going to change it, which kind of segues into what Baldwin's saying on page 43. So
what does he say?
He's saying, okay, well, I'll start on 42. This is one of the reasons, as it seems to me, that we are so badly educated. For to become educated, as all tyrants have always known, is to become inaccessibly independent. It is to acquire a dangerous way of assessing danger, and it is to hold in one's hands a means of changing reality. This is not at all the same thing as adjusting to reality. The effort of adjusting to reality simply has the paradoxical effect of destroying reality, since it substitutes for one's own speech and one's own voice an interiorized public cacophony of quotations. And so I love his multi-syllabic ending to that, right? Right. Because doesn't that sound like what you were talking about? You know, the media expectations, the songs, the pictures, the movie series. This is what Black love is supposed to look like. You know, this is what polyamorous love is supposed to look like. Really? And how, you know, and this is so brand new, but no, it's not. Look at the kings and queens of England. What would they? Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to turn her off.
Did you knock over a plant?
No, my Alexa comes on at sunset. To tell me, hey, sun's going down. You better do some stuff. No, but you know, that this outside cacophony, this outside noise trying to tell you how you're supposed to feel about things. If you're not ready for love, you should know it, right? The first person you need to love is you. The first person you need to have this all-encompassing, emotionally satisfying, deep relationship with should be you, because how will you know how to love anyone else, you know, unless you know how it feels to love you. Something that's often said is that the person that you end up with is the person who is the fulfills you. And what is that fulfillment? That's everything that you're missing in that person at that time. But hey, there's a caveat to that. You're changing all the time, and suppose they don't, right? Then they're no longer fulfilling those needs you thought you had when you first hooked up. So it's a continuously evolving situation. So I mean, even if it's not a romantic relationship, if it's just basically a social or business relationship, these same rules apply. And so you need to know how the human psyche works in order to, you know, traverse this dangerous terrain, and know who you are, right? What you want. And so even just reflecting, I don't know that much about Bessie Smith. So I don't know, you know, besides, you know, the emotions she reflected in her songs, you know, how difficult it was to find love during that period. And especially if you didn't look a particular way. And so we know that Baldwin, because of his orientation, you know, he had to, you know, hide and couldn't feel fully expressive, you know, of himself. And you know, what kind of things does that do to a person when they feel unloved and unaccepted on these different levels? You know, you want to change the reality or what people are telling you is reality. And instead you end up adjusting to it and feeling unfulfilled, not complete. So.
Thank
You know,
you.
what occurred to me while you were talking, Gio, is the whole notion of how we teach our children to love, so that they can build a strong, intuitive understanding of the intimate relationships in which they enter.
Yes.
So, you know, like this whole notion that I don't love you, even though I love you, unless you hold me, unless you love me back.
Yeah.
And I think these are the things that Baldwin wrestled with. These eccentric intellectual musings. And that's what we have in this particular book. Because I notice when he does talk about love, he also talks about God. When he's
And
not talking
parenting.
about love, you don't hear him talking about God. So I think he assigns a certain multi-dimensional nature to love. It is spiritual. And what's that word he used? He uses a word that means external to you. I think it's a word he made up, but anyway, I think he understands a love that's internal to you, and it gets informed through observation, through messages like Michelle was talking about that we find in the music.
Is the word irreality?
No, I have to go back in the book. I think I had a book. I think I underlined. So what the hell is this? But extra nationally or something like that. But it goes back to Michelle's point about the influences around us. And many times, like the Prince song, Controversy.
Mm-hmm.
For the first 5 years that song was out, I thought he was saying count your blessings.
Okay.
Now y'all know it sounds like count your blessings. And he's saying controversy. And I'm thinking for years, because I really don't have a very good ear for rock and pop music. And I was thinking, I would have known had I really been a follower of Prince. But Prince's kind of music, I only listen to at parties. I don't have I have a lot of Prince music, but I don't listen to it. I dance to it. So I think Michelle is right that it sets us up for expectations, and 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 attached to any expectation is the fear, or the fear of failure, or the joy of anticipation. Um, and I was thinking about that as she said it. I mean, and you're absolutely right. We have to make adjustments. I mean, like one of the things that happened after my generation of women and our declaration of the way you've been doing shit doesn't work was a soaring rate in the first 2 decades of my adult life of divorce. That was one of the responses.
Right.
And
which
that
was
one
also an influence on my generation. We saw that,
And it wasn't even a rat. I think sometimes, and I go back to Baldwin in the second chapter, is that that we not only smell a rat, but we walk into the alleyway where the rats are, not knowing or understanding that that's the environment in which we're walking into. I think that divorce rate was much a pronouncement of freedom for women as it was for men. It was also, I think, a period that people started ruminating about their lives. I think up until that point, where you saw divorce up until that point, rich people got divorced. But middle class women and men pretty much did not. So I think it was also combined with, and it's something that I don't ascribe just to the women's movement. I ascribe it to a whole new generation of people who decided to be self-invested and take on journeys of self-discovery. It wasn't just, I think the women's movement in part was because of that. And keep in mind, I'm a Black woman. I wasn't in a women's movement in 1972, 71. I was in a me movement. Because as a Black woman, I already knew what white women had to discover. And by that, I was able to see me instead of seeing me with the man attached. I don't know if you all realize that Stephen and I have been together for almost 26 years, but we are not married. And he was the first love of my life. And he went away after he graduated from Northeastern to be an officer in the army. And he went to Vietnam. And women of my generation, we didn't wait for our boyfriends or I wasn't waiting for anybody. Especially somebody in Vietnam. Where the hell is Vietnam? And we had been together for almost 3 years when he went to Vietnam. And he's pretty a traditional man. And he was writing to me and I didn't have time to write to him. I was doing something. I was protesting the war. I was doing shit, So when he came back, he had gotten shot up in the jungle. And when he came back, I was in Berlin. So I didn't even know he got shot up. The letters didn't catch up and all that stuff. So, but I was already dating someone else who is the person that I ended up marrying. And 26 years ago, we happened to run into each other. happenstance, I walk in the federal building, there's Stephen, and I hadn't seen him for probably, I did see him after he got married and I was married, and we had children the same age, and they were in the same program. So I would see them at parents' night or something like that. But anyway, 26 years ago, I walked into the federal building and there he was. And the rest of the story. But it had to do with not what happened between all those years we were apart. It had to do with what we had when we were together, when we were young people. So I think that what has enabled our relationship for this long is that he has done his good husband thing. I have done my good wife thing. I don't know if I ever did a good wife thing, but you know what I mean.
You tried.
I just wasn't cut out for it. I mean, one day I just said, I cannot do this. You need more. You deserve more for someone who is living on the planet that you live on. So that's how I ended up getting a divorce and remaining very good friends. I mean, I did the eulogy at my dead ex-husband's funeral, while his other wife that he found and married and she left him was sitting there. So I don't think that my generation, I do think that my generation was a generation of Black people looking to explore and define this new freedom, this larger world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go get some water.
Okay.
Gio?
Well, wow. I love that. What's interesting is that when BJ was talking about when when Stephen went to Vietnam, she didn't care she didn't know anything about Vietnam. But it made me think about chapter 4 here.
Hong Kong.
Right. He said, you don't know anything, you don't care, some words on the map. But when somebody you love is there, you want to find out everything. And BJ was like, I ain't studying about it. Okay, you go on. Got stuff to do, man. That was too funny. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
It just shows we're just different. We're just different. But but
Yeah.
he's still, right. If and I'm thinking about when my son was in Italy, he and his family, I'm like, okay, that's not the part of the world I'm familiar with. But let me, bone up on what's going over there. And then I find out, oh, there's all these volcanoes there. Are you going to be okay? All my grandchildren are going to be swept away in a fiery tsunami. then I cared, right? Then I cared.
Right. Yeah.
So, which could kind of be translated into, the lack of knowledge of geography, world geography of Americans today, unless they put it in your face, 24/7 about this particular town in this particular country, you don't care, and or you have somebody who's over there, right? Then you care about what's going on.
But I think that's a big part of what he was getting at in these chapters, that we don't care. It's, I think he says, the biggest fact of American life is that we don't care about our children.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, to me, I thought he kind of was going, I mean, I agree with what BJ was saying about him having, really an expansive view of love, a spiritual view. I hear him talking about the importance of parenting a lot. But in these particular chapters, it felt to me, the idea that love, romantic love, is the only way that we can be saved. That kind of was more of the message of these chapters to me than I see in some of his other works. And so for somebody like me, who's just kind of tripping through life all by herself, I like to believe that there are other kinds of love and other kinds of like what you were saying earlier, Georgette, about, learning to love yourself and know yourself. And that's really a driving force for me. So, I don't know, I guess I felt a little conflicted about these chapters.
Well, I think your statement conflicts with what Baldwin writes. Even though he encourages in the first chapter for the notion that you have to love yourself, I don't think he's saying that loving yourself, I think he's saying that to love yourself is an essential capacity that you must have in order to love others. And I really don't see him talking about romantic love. I see him romanticizing love. Which is different, I think. We have to keep it real about James Baldwin. He had a depressive personality. Even though he had an awesome intelligence, I think that sometimes his thinking was as laborious as some of his writing. Like I watched Pose, the show Pose with Billy Porter. And I often thought that Billy Porter's costumes, I seem from time to time to remind myself that Billy Porter's costumes in Pose were kind of like some of James Baldwin's writing, that it was a bit over the top intentionally. So I always keep that in mind when I'm reading James Baldwin. And I also keep in mind that he too lived between two worlds. And maybe even three. He didn't make a lot of money.
Motion detected at the gate.
So he had his civil rights friends, then he had his artsy, somebody's at my gate. Had his artsy friends in the, that whole, that and then he had this whole hidden community that he hung out with, and nobody knew who those people were, but we can pretty much surmise who they were. So, you know.
Eddie Glaude names a lover by name in the Afterword. I don't remember what it was, Lucian or something.
From that artsy community,
yeah.
What the hell is going on here? Somebody was at my gate, never came through. So anyway, I think that he does a lot of calligraphy in his writing. And we have to be mindful of that.
I like how you said that. Calligraphy.
Right?
Descriptive. No, I like how you said, I like the word you used, calligraphy. Yeah.
Is there another passage somebody wants to read, or another
I had a passage
question
that I wanted to read, and I wanted to get your thoughts about this. On page 37, he writes, well, he starts talking about, this is when he's writing about 4 a.m. in the morning. And he says, then one selects the uniform which one will wear. This uniform is designed to telegraph to others what to see so that they will not be made uncomfortable and probably hostile by being forced to look on another human being.
What page are you on?
That's
37. The uniform must suggest a certain setting, and it must dictate a certain air. And it must also convey, however subtly, a dormant aggressiveness, like the power of a sleeping lion. It is necessary to make anyone on the streets think twice before attempting to vent his despair on you. So armed, one reaches the unloved streets. The unloved streets. I have very often walked through the streets of New York, fancying myself a kind of unprecedented explorer, trapped among savages, searching for hidden treasure. The trick being to discover the treasures before the savage discovered me. Hence, my misleading uniform. I think that says so much about James Baldwin's disguise of his fear. And then when I read it, I also thought, man, you need to really go back down to Times Square. Everything has changed. But it was interesting that he used the word savages. He kind of pissed me off using that word. But anyway.
Well, who do you think he was talking about? Who were the savages?
The people in the streets. The people he feared.
We do have some scary sights on the streets of New York.
Well, yeah, I mean, in New York City, New York City was a scary place to walk around in, especially at night during his time. And when I worked at, when I was with the Fortune Society, their offices were on the 3rd floor of a walk-up in Times Square, and there were like 4 bars door to door, and one of them was a titty shop or whatever it was, porn shop or what, I had to push my imagination to figure out what it was because I had never been in one and people didn't talk about it then. And all the homeless, drug dealers, you had to navigate that sidewalk to get to the door, and you didn't know what you were going to meet when you hit the steps. Those were the savages that he was talking about. And it really exemplifies.
Well, I don't know if those are the savages he was talking about. I mean, those are elements of New York City, and I guess many places. But, given where he's talking about these buildings and rising into the sky and who were they built for. And there's a piece, let me see, I think on page between 40 and 42, where he's talking about our striking addiction to irreality and people who work at the most disgraceful jobs in order to pay for the luxury of someone else's attention. So he could be talking about, people who have to do the lowliest of work, but what that section made me think about was this Hulu miniseries that I just watched the other day called Dope Sick. And it's about the Sackler family. Savages, the Purdue Pharma company, and how they went about, hooking so many people on opioids with bold-faced lies. Savages. So I don't really know who James might have been referring to.
He's certainly articulating a layer of fear in his life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think about it, I mean, we joke about it, and all these women with these big glasses on TV and eyelashes. I saw a lady who was, her last name, Carmen Best was her name. And she used to be the chief of police, either in Portland or Seattle. A Black woman. And she's now written a book about blue and black law. And she was on, I don't remember what show it was, since I watch MSNBC all day and all night. But she had on the thickest false eyelashes And then she had her hair and it was coming down across her eye. And I said to myself, I hope that she didn't wear that kind of makeup when she was the chief of police, because that's the wrong uniform.
I'll say.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, every time I've seen her, and I've been seeing her ever since the George Floyd, she resigned because they cut the budget for the police or something. I don't know. I couldn't figure out. Sometimes I didn't get what she was saying, but I think she was the chief of police when she first started coming on as a commentator at MSNBC, and she had those eyelashes and the hair swoop.
That's so distracting.
And I think Baldwin is making a very good point. Our uniforms have to be intentional, and they have to have purpose. You know, so I thought it was Carmen Ventilating.
So on that note, isn't it, what about, well, if she was wearing those eyelashes and the hair swoop while she was in uniform, wouldn't that, at the same moment as it's trying to project authority, also discredit her because people are looking at her eyelashes? And was that
not
an
only just
intentional?
distracting,
Right.
it talks about her. It to me, what I have always thought, and I may be wrong, that it taps away at your credibility and the way in which you critically analyze and prioritize what you do.
Yeah.
I had a.
You know, where Baldwin talks about, he's talking about parenting and you know, and children who don't have somebody to show them how to prepare for life. And so I'm just thinking, as you're talking about her, it's like,
I mean, she just wrote a book on leadership.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
And
so did Donald Trump. What's your point?
I don't know if I'll be reading that.
And I sat there listening to her and wondered whether, and it just said, you know, in my brain, you have some wonderful things to offer and to say, but your eyelashes are ripping away 80% of the credibility of what you're saying. I just don't get it, you know, and there are a lot of scholars. Christina Greer's one of them. They're wearing these big eyeglasses. I mean, like clown glasses. Like if I wanted to do a Halloween costume for a student clown or something, I would wear them. And it all started with Oprah, who wore the big black glasses at one time as a fashion statement. And then they just took it to another level. Jesus Christ. Have you seen these people?
No, and I don't want to know.
They have red glasses and they have cobalt blue glasses and yellow glasses. And they're huge. They're just huge.
I'm going to redirect this to the guys. And what I find similar to that situation are the football commentators with these outlandish outfits. And I'm like, what country did what country both
Yeah.
do? But and you know, they're probably experienced, and I don't do football, I don't know that much about it, but I would listen to you if I wasn't so distracted by your mixing of stripes and plaids and polka dots with a bright day glow orange tie or some stuff. I'm like, really, dude? Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of the same thing, right? Who's the stylist, right? You know, is your substance in your words and your experience that you have to offer, or is this persona, this uniform you're constructing, this idea you're constructing and presenting to the audience as your brand, because that's, you know, that's the the watchword for the century, isn't it? You know, your brand that you're selling something always, instead of, you know, information and information exchange.
Well,
So yeah.
there's another question that comes up, but it's not related to the book. I don't think. I don't see the catch in the book. Is that we have celebrities and people who are prominently placed in position in our society, and the Black ones always seem to be dressed like clowns. The rappers, the other people. I mean, why do we always have to look like we have lost our minds? I don't get it.
I would say, to stretch the point, that the catch in the book might be where he's with that passage where he's talking about choosing your uniform, and you know, and wanting to wear a uniform that tells other people not to vent their despair on you. As you and Gio were talking, what I was really thinking about is we assume that we know the intention, that we know the message this individual wants to convey, but from their perspective, what are they looking for? What do they want to convey? And, you know, and I think there's a lot of variation in that.
Yeah. So if their point is to stand out and distract, well, they're succeeding.
Right. What kind of attention, you know, what do they want?
Yeah. Well,
and what, you know, what is the perhaps missing thing in them that is causing them to seek, you know, the kind of attention that they or, you know, or like looking for love in all the wrong places.
The tattoos all over their faces. I mean, I saw somebody, I don't know who they were once, and they didn't have any more room to have a tattoo. So, but anyway, I don't think that Black people are even,
and it's not just Black people anymore. You know, everybody's got the pink and the purple. There is a Black woman who is a nurse's aide or medical assistant or something at my primary care doctor's office. And I went in one day and she had on, it wasn't Halloween, she had on a big old red big old wig. And it really distracted me from you know, her trying to give me the finger stick and whatnot. It made me feel uncomfortable as a patient because I felt like I was being treated by a clown.
Yeah. People who are not serious. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And I don't know how and when all of this got translated. You know, um, people go into medical offices or a hospital or someplace, and the nails are so long they couldn't possibly help you do anything. You know, I just, but in terms of the uniform that Baldwin is talking about, it comes from a culture of um, Martin Luther King was a smart dresser. Medgar Evers was a smart dresser. They were they were steadfast in positioning how they looked into the place where they wanted to be. Look at Malcolm. The
Yeah,
Nation of
but
Islam.
it's
The Nation
also
of Islam has this down.
it's also the generation of respectability politics. And I wish we had one of our younger women like Nicole or Leonie here in the group to, I can't articulate it like they can. But you know, there's been a real turn away from the idea of respectability politics.
I know the first time I went home and I saw my father, I mean, he was mowing his lawn, but he had on a pair of jeans. And I said, uh-oh, the world has gone into a big reverse. But he would not have gone anywhere far with jeans on. But that was what jeans were all about. My generation trying to create, even though I fell in love with jeans when I was in high school because I saw some kids at Ohio State actually with jeans on, and I really liked it. And people were looking at me in West Palm Beach, Florida, like, what the hell?
But that's the thing, and you know, and as I was saying earlier, with your generation and the you know, the free to be me, Marlo Thomas thing going on, and you know,
but free to be me was Tara's generation, not our generation. Yeah,
all of that.
I know because I had to watch it 250 times a month.
Each generation seems to feel like they have to push the envelope, you know, and so now we've got pink hair and lime green and purple.
But those aren't uniforms, those are costumes. And
well,
and I think Baldwin was talking about a uniform to prepare him for to make ready as a shield.
Well, would you run up on somebody with purple hair?
Hell no.
No.
Oh my goodness.
But you know, it's really interesting. Imani and Tara, when they get ready to go to a dinner or something real formal or something, they go out and they get their makeup done and they get the individual eyelashes, but they are very, very careful. It has to look natural. That's Imani's thing. It has to look Imani doesn't like anything that goes above the norm, you know. And she would say, I don't want my grandmother telling me I look like I'm about to fly off the planet. And she says, and besides, it makes you look ridiculous. It's not, they are not even meant to look like bat wings. So I don't know, but here, Baldwin is talking about not only clothing, I think. I think he's talking about building a shield, a uniform. The people that you are with, the people who you surround yourselves with, the way in which you articulate your ideal of liberation and freedom, and the way in which you denounce your oppression. So I know I might be amplifying what little Jimmy said.
But that's okay. No, no, that's okay. No,
Yeah.
the imagery of it from when he starts from the steam, the foggy mirror, and
Mhm.
you know, your patient bones are rising up in your, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
from that place of death you've just passed, and you've decided to keep it going for another day. So you become, you know,
I'm
as you
not
said, build
certain.
shield.
I- I'm not certain. What is the time frame in which he wrote this?
Wasn't I thought this was 68? Was it
Yeah,
68?
I think it was after the passage of the Civil Rights Act. And you could feel that he didn't have very much hope for it to make a lot of difference. I mean, and around 60, it's also when they made the big mistake. You know what the big mistake was, right? They
What?
left out economic development and housing out of the Civil Rights Act by mistake. It was a big mistake. And Johnson had to go back and create um, the civil rights, the federal Civil Rights Act for housing and economic development. Um, so with that kind of mistake, people like James Baldwin would have picked that up pretty easy. I mean, it only took them 2 weeks. But imagine what that 2 weeks was. Oh, wait a minute. Y'all left out housing? Uh, and it took the federal government, it's not like in the federal government you can go and say, oh, we'll do it tomorrow. It took them 2 damn weeks, partly because they had to go back through the House and the Senate because it wasn't part of the vote. Um, so 2 weeks was really pretty fast. But imagine a James Baldwin sitting there and saying, what the hell? And feeling a certain amount of, see, this shit's falling apart before it even begins. I mean, I would have been um, feeling that way.
Yes.
And the other is he was just a man who knows too much. And his writing reflects it over and over and over. He knows too much. He saw more than they saw. And that's why he talks about in this book, he's talking about observing. Um, how John Lewis was treated at the March on Washington. Um, what was the mathematician's name? Mosley, Moses, not Bob Moses. Um, Bob Moses has been on my mind so much lately. Um, one of the architects that worked for A. Philip Randolph. the guy that was a mathematician. I can't think of his name, and he was gay, but he really was the architect.
Bayard Rustin? No.
Another guy. I'll think of his name at 3:00 this morning. You know, you have no idea how I have to text people and say, "Oh, the word I was thinking about was this or that." So
well, we can wait till next week to find out.
So, hey, ladies, before we go, I had a question about something here on page 42, and I wanted to get your thoughts about it. So down there towards the last part of this first paragraph, he says, and they cannot raise them because they have opted for the one commodity which is absolutely beyond human reach, safety. And so, what do you think about that? Is it true? Do you agree? Is it something that's still going on now?
I absolutely agree. And keep in mind, he talks about this or Imani Perry talks about it. Somebody talks about it. But it's a theme of his about how Black people cannot guarantee safety for their children, no matter what we do. And I think it's still true today. And not even to talk about the physical safety of our children. I mean, I am one Black grandmother who believes that no matter what my grandchild would say to a police officer or how they would respond or whatever, they would be harmed. Whether it be a verbal assault or physical assault, they would be. I mean, I am scared to death with Imani, who lives right on the cusp of Boston, but does not live in Boston. And she's always going to meet her friends at some hotel for drinks or whatever. And so late at night, she's driving home in her car. And I'm just so afraid that she's going to be stopped by some cop and physically or sexually assaulted. That's a fear of mine. That's a real fear. And I don't think it's unfounded. Or that Miles is going to be stopped and a cop is going to beat him down because he won't be able to shut his mouth. I mean, I just, those are real fears of real Black people. I'm a real Black person.
Yes.
As opposed to Tara's fear about those things are not as heightened as mine. But they got a little bit heightened when during the George Floyd protests, Miles and his friends organized and the state troopers showed up with dogs.
So on that note, so when Baldwin says they're not able to raise their children. We are able to raise them, but what kind of raising is he talking about? We're raising them in fear as much as they will accept, for their, to sort of, well, you can't guarantee safety, but have a,
we can't rate. What do you? Let me get some more meat from your question. You are questioning whether or not he's saying that we can't raise our children. Period.
yeah, yes. So I'm trying to, decipher what kind of raising is he talking about. Is he talking
Well,
about?
when you raise kids, you're trying to give them a future, prepare them for a future that is abundant with possibilities and opportunities, that their lives, I mean, as a parent, my goal was that my daughter would have less struggle and more opportunity than I had. So when you're raising a kid, you're feeding them so that they have a wholesome body and they won't die of COVID-19, I guess. You're also raising them to be thinkers, critical thinkers. You're raising them for a lot of things. And you think Baldwin is saying we can't raise our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that
Or
too,
who is he
Jill.
particularly talking about? Yeah. That was my question.
I don't know if it's from this passage or other passages, where he's saying that the choices that we've made around materialism, have left us neglectful of the children. So he kind of comes at it, I think, from different angles, but I would agree that he's not impressed with the parenting, and I don't think he's just talking about Black people. I think he's talking about Americans really.
And over on page 41. He writes, I have known people in genuine trouble who somehow manage to live with their trouble. And I cannot but compare these people. I can see him. I can see him saying this. Yeah, can you all see him saying this? Ex-junkies and jailbirds, sons of German Nazis, sons of Spanish generals. And then he says, to my Black and tough and Puritan conscience, it seems an absolute scandal. And again, this peculiar self-indulgence certainly has a dreadful effect on their children, whom they are quite unable to raise. He is talking about people who end up with children. He's talking about ex-junkies, jailbirds, sons of German Nazis and Spanish generals, sons of Southern racists, blues singers and Black matrons with their fluid horde. In my professional and quasi-professional contacts. whose only real trouble is inertia. So that's who he's talking about. People who are sitting still, who are not growing, who are not flourishing, cannot raise children. That's what he's talking about. I knew you would. But I also think that he understood Black people, Black parents cannot guarantee safety to their children.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for that.
You know, and I'm not
This is a good
defending him
example.
because he can,
Okay.
just get out there sometime to be talking bullshit.
Well, we're not agreeing or disagreeing. I just
Yeah.
need to know
It
what he
I
meant.
mean, if you look at some of his work, and it's the same thing about Richard Wright, sometimes they just out there just talking. Sometimes I think some of these, James Baldwin particularly, he doesn't go back and read his manuscript.
But on the safety point, I think he's on point.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm just thinking now, the story I saw yesterday about Benton Harbor, I think it is, Michigan.
And the water.
And the water.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the people they highlighted was a woman who is a councilwoman in that town. And her daughter died. And her daughter already had some kind of disability going on, which she believes was exacerbated by the heavy lead content in the water there. And so I'm saying she's a councilwoman, to suggest that she probably had, some resources, some capacity to think that she was providing a decent environment to raise her child in. But the danger comes on so many fronts, comes on so many fronts.
And that goes back to our discussion at the beginning of the session about the narrowness of Black people's lives during Bessie Smith, because they had wells, they controlled their water, they control so much. One of the things they couldn't control was their daughters getting pregnant.
Yeah.
But,
that's still uncontrollable.
Yes. Yes. But, it was contained. Segregated communities were contained.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a safety net. If somebody in the neighborhood had fallen behind in their rent, it was someone in that neighborhood. They could go big. I mean, as a kid, how many times have I heard conversations where people are saying, well, Ms. Peak, I'll pay it back as soon as I get my check, or I'll pay it back. So that safety net is no longer there. And when that safety net started to fall apart, people didn't see very many options, I think. And keep in mind that James Baldwin did not see the crack epidemic. nor did he see the adult children of the first generation of crack heads and crack houses having so many developmental issues that they couldn't graduate from high school, couldn't learn in elementary school. And then they started having babies by the time they were in high school. Because that was the only thing they had figured out how to do well. So James Baldwin was not a witness to that. But one of the things, and I'll go back to my theme from the chapter 2, is that he encourages us to be liberated witnesses. To understand why the son of a Southern racist could not be raised. Or the son of a German Nazi could not be raised. He called them ex-junkies, but he understood. I always wondered if he was part of that whole heroin, in his time, it was heroin. And there were people who used it casually in the same way that people use marijuana now. Or the other stuff. What's the other stuff? The white stuff, the white powder stuff.
Opium?
Huh?
Opium? What?
Cocaine.
Cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, doctors were prescribing it, so they thought it was all medicinal.
Yeah.
So he's also pushing us in these chapters to look for the light in the darkness. And so I think we should stretch to find a way to end this conversation with some light.
Okay.
Who's got it?
Okay. And hopefully they won't. I have, I didn't know. Have you guys heard the song Blackbird written by Paul McCartney? You probably have. So. You just didn't know that he wrote it. And they did a piece recently about why he wrote it. And it was because he was observing, it was in about 68. He and the other members of the Beatles were observing the civil rights struggle, and he felt.
I did read that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so he saw the young lady, trying to desegregate school, and it touched him. And so I think this is a brief segment, so we're not going to get deep for it. This is John Baptiste performing a little bit of that song. So I encourage everyone to go look up the lyrics and try to.
Are you sharing it?
Yeah, I'm going to share it. Hold on just a second. I'm trying to get myself together here.
We're gonna get another violation.
Oh my God.
It'll be at the end though. So when we come back next week though, we can talk about the Afterword, Eddie Glaude, and then we'll be done.
Okay. Yay. Okay. I am now. Let's move it over. I feel like an old person. Clunking around over here. Okay, here we go.
Are we supposed to be looking at?
Is it a song?
Yeah, it's a song, but he's only going to sing like the first verse of it. So hopefully we won't get dinged.
Okay.
I didn't hear anything.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh no. The audio and hear it?
No,
No, do you?
no.
You're muted, GL. Is that why we can't hear it?
I'm trying to change this.
You can
You went to
hear
the
it?
wrong tab.
Oh, I think I have to. My audio is messing up. Hold on. Let me see. Internal speaker. There we go. Okay, let me back this up.
Okay.
They're waiting for this moment to rise.
All right.
Gio, you lifted the mood.
Know about that.
You gave us some light. BJ's drawn to the darkness.
Going to the dark side. Okay, dark side.
She got to the dark side. You can't help her.
It would seem to me that he missed the whole point.
God.
Come on, BJ. Come on.
Come on, BJ.
I mean, there are titles that I love of the
Beatles.
Beatles, but it seems to me What is he talking about? It's like, does he think that this Black girl is fixing herself by integrating the school? I don't get it. I'm confused.
Well, just look online for how he talks about it. And, you have to look at what point he's in, what position he's in. So this is how he sees it. And he's just he
Who
felt
is this?
touched.
John McCarthy or Tom McCarthy?
Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney. Okay.
And
Okay.
so I liked it when it struck me because of what Baldwin says in chapter 4 about it is necessary while in darkness to know that there is light somewhere. And so I think that Paul McCartney, in his way, as the Beatles did with a lot of their songs, tried to provide some light in the darkness, shine some light on it. And a lot of people sing that song to this day, not knowing why it was created. And so that may give them, the impetus to go find out. Yeah, let's find out about the situation. And someone else cared, someone of great status, to do this thing,
Okay. I mean, I got your point about why you wanted to share it. But then when I heard the lyrics and I'm thinking, what is he thinking?
You just have to, you got to go watch.
Like make up some shit to make it be in the light. Y'all light people. Y'all light people. I mean, I grew up with two mothers and a father who was always looking for the light.
I know. I saw you posted something. Didn't you tweet something today about, I don't know, fatal optimists or something?
Okay.
Well, the thing is, and my daughter says it, everybody, I mean, my whole circle will say, oh God, here she comes. They'll agree and then give up their butts. But here is the thing. James Baldwin never gave up hope. And I've said that a lot. He was a very hopeful person. He did a lot of skip toe through the tulips. And
I don't think you have either.
No, I have not. I still try to find some goodness in Barack Obama and the rest of them. I do. I do. I think Barack Obama has this light that shines through in him that is such a treasure. And I think, Michelle, did you freeze?
Michelle is frozen.
Michelle looks like she froze. But I'm gonna have to go and look at Paul McCartney's all the lyrics, because I trust you, Gio. I do trust you. And if you say there's, every time she stops the recording, she freezes.
Yeah.
You noticed that last week when she was trying to stop the recording?
Yeah.
So how was your week this week?
It's been okay. I've been burning the candle at both ends in the middle. I'm a terrible procrastinator. There's always more stuff I want to do and read, and then I get hooked up into watching all these esoteric videos about hidden history. And then I want to go look it up. So it's been a good week for me.
I gave up the news yesterday. Michelle, every time you stop the recording, you freeze.
I didn't stop.
Oh, you froze before.
Oh, that's why it was saying, see, she's frozen again.
Yeah, it must be network. Yeah, her internet, her internet. Well, but what were you saying, BJ? You gave a talk. What did you say?
What? I
Oh,
gave up news
oh,
for yesterday and today.
okay.
I didn't want to know.
Good. That's you gotta take a break because that stuff will.
Because that hearing of that January 6th committee last week,
Goodness.
I tell you, I was sick to the bone listening to those people.
I believe it. I wouldn't even expose myself to that.
She just made me the host.
Okay.
That's what it said. And it's still live.
But just not recording. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to protect your mental health because it's look, they're not going to do things the way they should do it, right? And you're hoping against hope that the result something similar to justice.
Yeah.
But there's so much crap surrounding, everything. It's just, and it seems because we're looking at it from where we sit, it seems so obvious. Okay, but they're trying to convince us it's not what we see. It's not what we think it is. So yeah,
She's frozen again.
Oh.
Michelle.
We need to get Michelle a new modem if this is the issue.
I thought she said she was gonna get a modem.
Maybe she didn't get it yet. We must invest.
I've lost her altogether. It says Michelle. Do you see Michelle's face?
I see her. I see the still where she's frozen. Oh, now she's gone.
Yeah, I have to pull away sometimes, and I've been thinking that this break that I'm going to take, I'm going to be away November, December, and I'm not going to try to put up any shows. I'm not going to do all of that stuff. I'm just going to let it be.
Okay, that's good.
So because I'm really struggling with this cough thing. This cough thing is driving me nuts.
Well, BJ, you seen the doctor about it? What you doing?
They say it's GERD,
Really?
acid reflux.
Really? Well, don't take those prescribed medicines. Take you some apple cider vinegar with the mother in it in some warm water. Because what
I've been drinking aloe vera extract.
And has it helped?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Last night I had such a terrible time because the coughing got so bad. I had to put that wedge. I bought a wedge. I had to put that wedge in the bed. And I couldn't figure out how to sleep on it because I'm a side sleeper. I didn't know what to do. I was just miserable.
Yeah.
And I woke up with a crook in my neck because I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to get more sleep.
Well, don't eat like at least 2 hours before you go to bed.
Yeah, that's one of the things they say.
And this is, well, it's not controversial. It's probably just real science, but not conducive to the pharmaceutical company. When you have acid reflux, a lot of the times it's because you're not producing enough sufficient stomach acid. So I think it's HCl is the chemical term for the stomach acid that you need. And I forgot what other things you use besides actually getting a diluted form of it and then taking it. Besides the apple cider vinegar is with the mother is
What
a
do you mean with the mother? What is
well,
with the
if you see
mother?
Bragg's apple
Oh
cider.
yeah, I have Bragg's.
So yeah, that's you just have to start taking it regularly, and it not only helps with the acid that in acid
But I
reflux.
thought apple cider vinegar was acidy.
Isn't it strange? But the same thing is about with lemons. So you would think lemon water, right? And I've been drinking lemon water with, well, chopped up boiled lemons with a stick of cinnamon and organic ginger in it, and drink a cup of it, and it cuts all the phlegm. And I don't have acid reflux at night because that's really, it became a problem for me because I've been carnivore for like a year, and which helps with my arthritis. But so try it. So
okay, I did get a recipe off of YouTube where the lady had me grinding the lemon and grinding the ginger, and I forgot what else was in it.
Probably honey and cloves of garlic. I saw that recipe, and I'll be trying that some other time.
But what I did buy is I bought some ginger capsules, extract of ginger capsules, licorice. I've been chewing 3 of those a day. I mean, 9 of those a day. But I'm gonna start with the apple cider vinegar tomorrow.
Yeah, and so the other thing in the hot lemon ginger cinnamon drink is honey. So after you boiled it, you put it in your cup, and then you add a couple of tablespoons of honey.
I know her recipe said you could add the honey or not add the honey, and I didn't add the honey.
Oh, I prefer the honey. Honey. So, and you can also put the honey in put the apple cider vinegar in the hot water, make a tea out of that, and put honey in there too, because it's about soothing, your esophagus and that flap, and getting that acid, that I guess you could say healthy acidity.
I would have been on apple cider vinegar, but I thought apple cider vinegar was acidy, so I didn't.
Yeah, it's a strange thing our body does.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, this cough. Did you have a cough with it?
In the GERD portion, it would be a cough. Look, I have laid down in the bed, unfortunately, and been woken up by, some stuff coming up. I'm like, oh my God, is this how drug addicts die?
But I can't feel anything coming up. It's just the cough. It's just the cough.
So I would say that the acidity, well, the pH of, I'll just say pH of the apple cider vinegar or the lemons or limes in the boiled water with the ginger, the honey, and the cinnamon will cut that phlegm. Because what is phlegm? Mucus comes because there's some kind of something that's going on, right? I'm thinking an inflammation, something that needs to be coated. So if you're treating,
my doctor told me that I'm producing more mucus now and phlegm because it's my body's way of fighting the acid in a place that it shouldn't be.
Wow. Okay. Well, that blows me out of water. Well, just try it.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying. I'm definitely trying it.
It's not working. Go old school. Okay, go old school.
I mean, Michelle told me about the oregano, and I bought the oregano capsules, and I started taking probiotics.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm going to start with the apple cider vinegar. Tonight, I'm making an apple cider vinegar tea before I go to bed.
Okay. Yeah. And let me know how it does for you.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to end this. It was good seeing you.
You too.
And I will see you next week. And maybe I'll do a James Baldwin interview.
Ooh,
You know.
that would be nice.
Okay. Well, it looks like Michelle's not coming back. So thank you all for joining us. We'll be right back here next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time with a conversation of James Baldwin's Nothing Personal. Because guess what? It is personal. It is very personal. Good night, Gio. Good night.